Rex Heuermann tortured women for up to 4 days in his basement, keeping them alive specifically to maximize their suffering before brutally strangling them to death. For over 30 years, he systematically hunted vulnerable victims, making him one of the most evil serial killers in American history. Investigators caught him through DNA on a discarded pizza box, but that was just the beginning. What they discovered hidden on his computer would reveal the terrifying scope of his methodical approach to murder. A detailed planning document with step-by-step instructions for hunting, torturing, and disposing of victims, complete with notes on how to improve his killing techniques for next time. What was written in those pages will shock you. It's a different level of horror that's hard to even imagine. To uncover this disturbing truth, watch the video till the very end because you are not ready for what's coming. Rex Heuermann walked into his Manhattan architecture office on July 13, 2023, completely unaware that investigators had been building a case against him for over a year. The 59-year-old family man from Massapequa Park seemed like the perfect neighbor, successful, quiet, unremarkable. His daily routine was predictable. Drive to work in his beaten-up Chevy Avalanche, spend hours hunched over architectural plans, return home to his wife Asa and their 2 children. But what law enforcement discovered about his secret life would brutally shatter everything anyone thought they knew about this ordinary suburban father. For decades, Rex Heuermann had maintained a facade of normalcy that was so convincing, so perfectly ordinary, that even his closest neighbors never suspected the horrifying truth. He owned RH Consultants and Associates, an architecture firm specializing in designing buildings that would stand for generations. His business cards listed impressive credentials, and his professional reputation was solid if unremarkable. Colleagues described him as somewhat unkempt and socially awkward, but dedicated to his work and reliable in his deliverables. Asa Ellerup, Rex's wife of 27 years, worked as an accountant and managed the family's finances. Their children attended local schools and participated in typical suburban activities. From the outside, they appeared to be living the American dream, a successful middle-class family with stable careers, a comfortable home, and a predictable future. But what investigators would later discover is that this perfect facade was hiding something far more sinister. Rex Heuermann was living 2 completely separate lives, and the compartmentalization was so complete, so methodically maintained, that even his own family had no idea about the monster sharing their home. The Gilgo Beach coastline stretches for miles along Long Island's south shore, desolate, remote, and horrifyingly perfect for hiding bodies. The area is characterized by thick undergrowth, marshy terrain, and limited access points that make it ideal for someone looking to dispose of evidence without being observed. Ocean Parkway runs parallel to the beach, providing easy vehicle access while maintaining enough distance from populated areas to avoid casual foot traffic. Between 2010 and 2011, police searching for missing escort Shannon Gilbert made a discovery that would haunt investigators for over a decade. Scattered along this isolated stretch of sand, they found the remains of multiple young women, all brutally murdered, all discarded like garbage. The positioning of the bodies was methodical, strategic, and suggested that whoever placed them there had intimate knowledge of the area's geography and traffic patterns. The first discovery came on December 11, 2010, when Suffolk County Police Officer John Malia and his cadaver dog Blue were searching the thick brush near Gilgo Beach. What they found would launch one of the most complex and disturbing serial killer investigations in New York history. The remains were wrapped in burlap sacks, a detail that would become a horrifying signature linking multiple crime scenes. As investigators continued searching the area over the following months, more bodies emerged from the sand. Each discovery revealed new layers of brutality and calculation. The killer had chosen locations that would maximize decomposition while minimizing the chances of accidental discovery. Bodies were positioned to take advantage of tidal patterns, weather exposure, and natural scavenging that would complicate forensic analysis and victim identification. The victims had names, dreams, families who loved them desperately. Melissa Barthelemy was just 24 years old when she vanished without a trace on July 12, 2009. Born and raised in Buffalo, New York, she had moved to the Bronx seeking better opportunities and independence. Her family described her as vibrant, loving, and fiercely protective of her younger sister. Melissa was working as an escort to support herself financially, advertising her services on Craigslist and maintaining a small apartment in the Elmhurst section of Queens. After Melissa's disappearance, her family received terrifyingly taunting phone calls from her killer, using her own cell phone to torture them with cruel words. The caller would breathe heavily, whisper obscenities, and make references to Melissa's death that left her family traumatized and desperate for answers. These calls demonstrated a level of psychological cruelty that went far beyond the act of murder itself. This killer was feeding off the prolonged suffering of his victims' families. The phone calls to Melissa's family revealed disturbing details about the killer's psychology. He wasn't content with simply ending his victims' lives. He needed to extend the torture to their loved ones. The calls were made from crowded public places in Manhattan, suggesting that the caller was familiar with the city and confident enough in his ability to avoid detection that he was willing to make these calls in broad daylight, surrounded by potential witnesses. Megan Waterman, age 22, disappeared on June 6, 2010, leaving behind a 3-year-old daughter. The last text from her phone was sent hours after she had supposedly left to meet a client, suggesting her killer maintained control of her communications for an extended period. Amber Lynn Costello, 27, vanished on September 2, 2010, despite taking precautions that should have protected her. Maureen Brainard-Barnes, 25, disappeared July 9, 2007, after multiple calls from the same number building trust throughout the day. But these 4 women were just the tip of the iceberg. What investigators uncovered next was far more sinister. Rex Heuermann's killing spree stretched back decades, with more horrifying murders coming to light. But before we dive into those shocking details, these women became known as the Gilgo for, linked together not just by death, but by the disturbing way they lived their final, horrifying moments. Each victim was found wrapped in burlap sacks, positioned along the same stretch of beach, and showing evidence of having been killed elsewhere before being transported to the disposal site. The killer had taken personal belongings, removed jewelry, and stripped the bodies of anything that might aid in quick identification. But what connected these brutal murders wasn't immediately obvious to investigators. Each victim was involved in sex work, advertising their services online through Craigslist and Backpage. They were vulnerable, often estranged from family, leading lives that society preferred to ignore. Someone was specifically hunting women who fit this exact profile, someone who understood that their disappearances might not trigger immediate, intensive police investigations. The killer's victim selection revealed a chilling understanding of law enforcement priorities and investigative procedures. Sex workers, particularly those advertising online, often work independently, move frequently, and may not maintain regular contact with family members. Their disappearances can go unnoticed for days or weeks, giving a killer valuable time to dispose of evidence and establish alibis. But this wasn't just opportunistic violence. The evidence suggested that someone was actively studying the vulnerabilities of this population and exploiting them systematically. The killer was placing ads on the same websites his victims used, engaging them in extensive text message conversations to build trust, and offering higher-than-usual payments to entice them to meet in isolated locations. The geographical analysis of the crime scenes revealed additional layers of planning and sophistication. Gilgo Beach was chosen not randomly, but because it offered specific advantages for body disposal. The area is accessible by vehicle but isolated enough to avoid casual observation. Tidal patterns and weather conditions would accelerate decomposition and scatter evidence. The thick undergrowth provided natural concealment while the sandy soil made digging easier. The killer demonstrated chilling knowledge of law enforcement procedures and investigation techniques. Bodies were wrapped in burlap sacks to contain decomposition fluids and limit DNA transfer. Personal belongings were removed or destroyed to complicate victim identification. The positioning of remains took advantage of natural elements that would degrade forensic evidence over time. For years, the case remained frustratingly cold. Investigators had DNA evidence, phone records, and witness accounts, but no clear suspect emerged. The killer seemed to have vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared, leaving families desperate for answers and a community living in fear that he might strike again. the investigation faced numerous challenges that complicated the search for answers. Suffolk County was dealing with political corruption scandals that had compromised public trust in law enforcement. The victims' involvement in sex work created additional barriers to witness cooperation and community engagement. Media coverage sometimes focused more on the victims' lifestyle choices than on the brutal crimes that had ended their lives. Then, in 2022, everything changed. The newly formed Gilgo Beach Homicide Investigation Task Force, led by Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney, decided to take a fresh approach to the decade-old case. This task force brought together investigators from multiple agencies, advanced forensic specialists, and cutting-edge technology that hadn't been available during the initial investigation. Using advanced DNA analysis techniques and sophisticated cell phone data mapping, they began constructing a digital profile of their unknown suspect. The new technology allowed investigators to analyze trace DNA evidence that had been too degraded or contaminated for previous testing methods. Cell tower data could now be analyzed with precision that revealed location patterns and movement tracking that had been impossible years earlier. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a discarded pizza box. Rex Heuermann had thrown it away outside his Manhattan office, never imagining that investigators were watching his every move. The surveillance operation had been ongoing for months, with investigators carefully documenting his daily routines, tracking his movements, and looking for opportunities to collect DNA evidence without alerting him to their interest. The DNA extracted from that pizza box would become the key piece of evidence linking him to one of the most brutal serial killing sprees in New York history. But obtaining that evidence required months of careful surveillance and planning. Investigators had to confirm his identity, establish his daily patterns, and wait for the right moment to collect a sample that would be legally admissible in court. But the DNA match was just the beginning. Investigators discovered that Heuermann's cell phone records placed him in the exact locations where victims had last been seen alive. The cell tower data showed his phone pinging near Melissa Barthelemy's last known location on the night she disappeared. Similar patterns emerged for each of the other victims, creating a timeline that was too coincidental to ignore. His online activity showed searches for escort services, specifically targeting women who matched his victims' profiles. Internet records revealed that he had been visiting the same websites his victims used to advertise, conducting searches during the time periods when they had been active online. Most disturbingly, his family's vacation schedules aligned perfectly with the disappearance dates of every single victim. Investigators discovered that Rex's wife Asa and their children would typically take extended trips to visit family in other states, leaving him alone in the family home for days or weeks at a time. These solo periods corresponded precisely with when each victim had vanished. The correlation between family vacations and victim disappearances suggested a level of planning and compartmentalization that was deeply disturbing. This killer wasn't acting impulsively. He was waiting for specific opportunities when he could operate without risk of discovery by his own family. The evidence suggested that he viewed his family's absence as hunting season, systematically using these periods to stalk, capture, and kill his victims. Asa Ellerup, Rex's wife of 27 years, had no idea that her husband's business trips and her family vacations were providing him with the perfect opportunity to hunt and kill. Suffolk County's top cop believes that they didn't know about this double life that Mr. Heuermann was allegedly living. The compartmentalization was so complete that she had continued living with, sleeping next to, and raising children with someone who was allegedly one of the most prolific serial killers in New York history. Asa filed for divorce immediately after Rex's arrest, and her attorney says she was as stunned as anyone by the accusations against her estranged husband. The family dynamics reveal a chilling pattern of manipulation and control that extended far beyond his alleged crimes. Rex saw Asa as a weak, emotionally person that fit the profile he needed to continue this course of conduct. Somebody that was emotionally stable would have maybe caught on to some of his behavior. This statement suggests that Rex deliberately chose a wife who would be less likely to question his activities or notice inconsistencies in his behavior. Their daughter privately admits she believes her father most likely committed the murders, while Asa maintains that he is not capable of the crimes he is accused of. This division within the family illustrates the psychological impact of discovering that someone you love and trust may be responsible for unthinkable acts of violence. The investigation revealed disturbing details about Heuermann's methodology that painted a picture of someone who had spent enormous amounts of time studying and perfecting his approach to murder. His intent, specifically, was to locate these victims, to hunt them down and to bring them under his control and to kill them, prosecutors stated. His motivations, meticulous planning, and clear intent is obvious. This wasn't about sexual gratification or financial gain. This was about the terrifying thrill of complete domination over another human being. The evidence suggests that he would spend weeks or months researching potential victims, studying their online advertisements, learning their communication patterns, and identifying their vulnerabilities before making initial contact. When investigators finally arrested Rex Heuermann on July 13, 2023, they had enough evidence to charge him with 3 murders immediately. The arrest took place outside his Manhattan office, where he had been conducting business as usual, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. Surveillance footage shows him walking to his car, briefcase in hand, looking like any other businessman ending another ordinary day. But what they discovered during the search of his Massapequa Park home would reveal the true, terrifying scope of his alleged crimes. The house at First Avenue looked ordinary from the outside, a typical suburban home where a family had lived for decades. Neighbors described it as slightly run down but generally well-maintained, with nothing obviously suspicious about its appearance or the family's behavior. But investigators found evidence suggesting that this unassuming residence had been the site of unimaginable horrors. The basement had been modified in ways that suggested it was used for purposes far beyond typical home renovation. Investigators discovered evidence of soundproofing, restraint systems, and modifications that would allow someone to hold victims against their will while avoiding detection from neighbors or family members. More charges followed as investigators continued analyzing evidence seized from his home and office. In June 2024, Rex was charged with the murders of Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack, expanding the timeline of alleged crimes by nearly 20 years. These additional charges suggested that his killing spree had been active far longer than initially suspected, with periods of dormancy followed by renewed violent activity. Jessica Taylor was 20 years old when she was murdered in 2003, and her case demonstrated the evolution of Heuermann's alleged methods over time. Her remains were found in 2 different locations, torso in Manorville in 2003, and additional body parts at Gilgo Beach in 2011. Investigators believe the mutilations were acts perpetrated by Rex Heuermann to inhibit the identification of the victim via facial recognition, fingerprints, and/or tattoo identification. Valerie Mack was 24 years old when she disappeared in 2000, making her potentially Heuermann's earliest known victim. Like Jessica Taylor, her remains were found in multiple locations, suggesting that dismemberment was part of his methodology for complicating victim identification and criminal investigation. By December 2024, prosecutors had charged Heuermann with 7 murders total, including Sandra Costilla, whose body was found in 1993. The expanded charges suggested that his killing spree may have lasted for decades, with periods of dormancy followed by renewed violent activity. This timeline painted a picture of someone who had been perfecting his methods for over 30 years. But the most shocking evidence was yet to be revealed. Hidden on electronic devices seized from his home, investigators discovered what they called a planning document, a chilling blueprint that revealed the methodical nature of his alleged crimes. This document would become the centerpiece of the prosecution's case and the most damning evidence of premeditation and systematic planning. The document was organized into 3 horrifying columns that read like an instruction manual for serial killing. Problems contained detailed analysis of potential evidence to avoid leaving behind, including DNA, fingerprints, witness testimony, and digital traces. Supplies listed rope, tarps, tape, medical gloves, cleaning agents, and specialized tools needed for the murders and disposal process. DS, believed to stand for dump site, contains specific locations researched and evaluated for body disposal, including detailed notes about access routes, traffic patterns, and natural conditions. Written in all capital letters, the planning document demonstrated a level of organization and forethought that shocked even experienced investigators. The language was clinical, methodical, and completely devoid of human emotion or recognition that he was planning to end human lives. The planning document contained reminders that would haunt even experienced investigators. Get sleep before hunt, suggesting that he viewed murder as a physically and mentally demanding activity that required preparation. Have no contact with them, indicating awareness that building any kind of relationship with victims would complicate his ability to kill them. Clean bodies thoroughly, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of forensic science and evidence transfer. Destroy all evidence showed that he was constantly thinking about investigation procedures and how to avoid detection. But perhaps most disturbing of all were notes about improvements for next time, suggesting that Heuermann viewed murder as a skill to be refined and perfected over time, like any other professional competency. The planning document revealed additional disturbing details about his psychological approach to murder. References to study habits suggested that he was analyzing news coverage of his crimes, possibly to understand how investigators were approaching the case and how he could modify his methods to avoid detection. Notes about timing indicated sophisticated understanding of when law enforcement resources were stretched thin or focused on other priorities. Investigators and crime experts believe that Rex Heuermann allegedly kept his victims alive to inflict pain and torture them for up to 4 days. The evidence suggests he would wait until his wife and children left for vacation, then use his family home as a torture chamber where he could maintain complete control over his victims' final, agonizing hours. The basement modifications discovered during the search supported this theory. Soundproofing materials had been installed that would muffle screams and other sounds from reaching neighbors or family members. Restraint systems had been constructed that would allow him to secure victims while preventing escape. Drainage systems had been modified in ways that would facilitate cleanup of biological evidence. Additional evidence included extensive internet searches for true crime podcasts and documentaries about the Gilgo Beach investigation. One fictitious email account was used to arrange sexual activity with victims, while another was used to search for content about the ongoing investigation. The scope of the evidence against Rex Heuermann is overwhelming and continues to expand as investigators analyze thousands of digital files, physical evidence, and witness testimony. DNA matches link him to multiple crime scenes. Cell phone records place him at the locations where victims disappeared. Internet search histories reveal his research into victim selection and disposal methods. The planning document provides a roadmap of his methodology and mindset. The cumulative weight of evidence has built what prosecutors describe as an ironclad case, linking him to at least 7 brutal murders spanning more than 2 decades. Authorities are now looking into possible ties between Rex Heuermann and investigations involving sex workers in Atlantic City, New Jersey, Las Vegas, Nevada, and other locations where he may have traveled for business or personal reasons. The investigation continues to expand as more evidence is analyzed and additional potential crime scenes are examined. The geographic scope of his potential crimes is still being determined, but investigators believe that his architectural work may have provided cover for travel to multiple states where similar murders occurred. His professional credentials would have allowed him to move freely between jurisdictions while maintaining a legitimate reason for being in various locations. As of 2024, Rex Heuermann remains in custody at Suffolk County Correctional Facility awaiting trial. His legal team maintains his innocence and has challenged various aspects of the evidence collection and analysis. However, the mountain of evidence against him continues to grow with each court appearance and each new piece of forensic analysis. He and his estranged wife, Asa Ellerup, have reached a divorce settlement, officially ending their 27-year marriage and her connection to the man she claims she never truly knew. The families of his alleged victims continue to seek justice and closure after years of uncertainty and pain. Asa Ellerup issued a statement extending her heartfelt sympathies to the victims and their families, saying, "Nobody deserves to die in that manner. Our condolences go to Melissa, Megan, Amber, Maureen, Jessica, Valerie, and Sandra, 7 women whose lives were brutally cut short by someone who saw them as nothing more than objects for his twisted fantasies." Rex Heuermann's planning document reveals chilling details about how he targeted and killed innocent women. Check the pinned comment and subscribe to Evidence Eye for more true crime.